Extraterrestrial musicians study human songs because they contain pure crystallized happiness. Part 1. Dr. Ara had studied the music of 473 species across the galaxy. She had listened to the crystal harmonies of the who sang through light refraction. She had analyzed the gravitational symphonies of the collective, who composed by bending spacetime itself. She had even survived the sonic architecture of the whose songs could reshape matter at the molecular level. None of it had prepared her for what happened when she played a human song called "Here Comes the Sun." The laboratory exploded with alarms. Her emotion detection equipment, devices that had measured feelings across countless alien species for 3 centuries, simply died. Smoke poured from the analysis chamber. Her assistant, a young researcher named as, rushed to activate the fire suppression system while Ara stared at the melted remains of her instruments. "What happened?" as asked, his vocal membrane fluttering with concern. Ara couldn't answer right away. She was too busy trying to understand the sensation moving through her body. Her species, experienced emotions through controlled chemical releases. Press a gland behind your ear, receive contentment. Activate the node in your chest, feel pride. Everything measured, everything balanced, everything safe. But this feeling hadn't come from any of her glands. It had come from the song itself. "Play it again," she whispered. "The equipment is destroyed, Doctor." "Use the basic speakers. No analysis, just sound." As hesitated then, the simple melody filled the laboratory. A human voice sang about the sun coming, about how things would be all right. The instrumentation was primitive by galactic standards, just strings and percussion and that strange human voice. Ara felt it again, warmth spreading through her chest, a lightness in her thoughts, something her people would call joy, except she hadn't activated any joy-inducing chemicals. The song was making her feel this way on its own. "Did you feel that?" she asked as. The young researcher's skin had shifted to a pale blue, indicating confusion. "I felt something. It shouldn't be possible. Sound waves can't trigger emotional responses without biochemical mediation." "Apparently, human sound waves can." Ara spent the next 3 days listening to more human music. She used only basic audio equipment, nothing that might interfere with or analyze the songs. She needed to experience them purely, the way humans did. Each song was different, yet each one carried something impossible. A song called "What a Wonderful World" made her feel peaceful despite containing no peace-inducing frequencies. A track named "Don't Stop" created an inexplicable sense of hope. A simple children's song called "You Are My Sunshine" contained more affection than her civilization's most sophisticated love generation protocols. The readings, when she finally dared to measure them again with rebuilt equipment, were absurd. Human music carried embedded emotional resonance at levels that violated known physics. Not just emotional content, which many species' music possessed, but actual crystallized emotion. The songs were somehow packages of pure feeling, wrapped in sound. She brought her findings to the Harmonious Collective's High Council. The chamber held 50 of the most respected scientists and artists, each one an expert in their field. Ara had worked for 200 years to earn her place among them. She played them "Here Comes the Sun." The reaction was immediate and divided. Half the council members showed the pale blue of confusion. The other half displayed colors Ara had never seen in formal settings, chaotic swirls of emotion that proper suppressed. "This is noise," declared Council Chief Ara. "Primitive species often create chaotic sound patterns. This is nothing new." "With respect, Chief, this isn't chaos," Ara replied. "I've analyzed the mathematical structure. Human music contains sophisticated patterns, but that's not what makes it special. The songs carry actual emotional energy. They affect listeners directly without any biochemical interface." "Impossible," said another council member. You're experiencing equipment failure or perhaps premature degradation of your emotional regulators. You should seek medical attention. But not everyone dismissed her findings. L, an ancient composer who had lived for 600 years, raised one crystalline hand. I felt it too, he said quietly. Something I haven't felt since I was young before I learned proper emotional control. Something raw. 3 other council members admitted to similar experiences. The chamber erupted in debate. Some called for immediate suppression of the research, claiming human music was a dangerous contamination. Others demanded more investigation. Finally, Ara raised her voice above the others. Dr. Ara, you will form a research team. You have 6 months to determine the nature of this phenomenon and assess whether it poses any threat to our civilization. If it does, all human musical samples will be destroyed. If it doesn't, we will decide how to proceed. Are we clear? Perfectly clear, Chief. Ara left the council chamber with mixed feelings. 6 months wasn't much time to understand something that seemed to contradict everything they knew about emotion and consciousness, but it was enough to start. She assembled her team carefully. As of course, joined immediately. She recruited Ra, who specialized in emotional regulation. She brought in K, a physicist who studied wave interactions. And finally, she convinced L himself to join, the old composer who had admitted to feeling something real in the human song. They established a research station in orbit around Earth, cloaked from human detection. From there, they could observe and collect without interference. The planet rotated below them, blue and white and green, home to billions of the strange creatures who somehow crystallized happiness into sound. Where do we even start? Az asked, looking at the massive database they'd compiled. Millions of human songs, from ancient tribal chants to modern electronic compositions, spanning thousands of years. We start with the ones that destroyed my equipment, Ara said. We start with the songs that made us feel. They began with simple experiments, playing songs and measuring their own reactions. The results were consistent and baffling. Certain human songs reliably triggered emotional responses in listeners, despite having no biochemical delivery mechanism. The effect seemed to operate through pure acoustics, though the physics of how that worked remained mysterious. Ra made the first breakthrough. Look at this, she said, displaying a molecular scan. When we listen to human music, our neurochemical pathways activate in patterns we've never seen before. It's not that the songs trigger our existing emotional systems. They're creating entirely new neural connections, temporary ones that form and dissolve with the music. That's incredible, Ara breathed. The songs are literally reshaping our brains in real time. For brief moments, yes. The changes don't last long after the music stops, but while it's playing, we're experiencing emotions the way humans do, without regulation, without control, just feeling. The implications were staggering. Civilization had spent developing emotional regulation. They'd engineered themselves into beings who could choose their feelings, activate them when needed, suppress them when inconvenient. It was considered the height of evolutionary achievement. But humans didn't have that ability. They felt everything all the time, whether they wanted to or not. Their emotions came unbidden and overwhelming, shaping their lives in ways no would tolerate. And yet somehow, that chaos had created something perfection never could. I want to understand why, Ara told her team. Why can humans do this? What's special about their music? Is it the mathematics, the frequencies, the timbres? There has to be a reason. Kay had been running his own analysis. I think I found something, he said. Look at this waveform comparison. This is a joy song, mathematically optimized to express happiness. He displayed a perfectly regular sine wave pattern. And this is a human song with similar intent, something called Happy by an artist named Williams. The human waveform was chaos, irregular, unpredictable, full of what composers would consider errors. Imperfect timing, inconsistent volumes, frequencies that clashed and resolved in unexpected ways. It's wrong by every standard we have, Kay said. But when I listen to it, I feel more happiness than our optimized songs have ever given me. Why? Old L had been quiet for most of the discussion, but now he spoke. Because perfection is empty, he said softly. I've composed songs for 500 years, each one more mathematically perfect than the last. They communicate happiness efficiently. They do exactly what they're designed to do, but they don't make me happy. They haven't for centuries. He played the Williams song again, letting it fill the research station. This song is flawed. The human voice cracks occasionally. The timing isn't precise, but it contains something our music lost long ago. It contains actual feeling. The human who made this was happy when he sang it, and that happiness crystallized into the song itself. We can hear it. We can feel it because it's real. The research team sat in silence, listening to the imperfect human song, each of them feeling something their civilization had optimized away in pursuit of perfection. They had 5.5 months left to understand what that meant. Part 2. The research station's database grew exponentially. Every human song they could find, categorized and analyzed. Ara's team worked 20-hour days, sleeping only when exhaustion forced them. The mystery of human music had consumed them completely. As made a discovery on the 17th day. He'd been studying what humans called the blues, a genre that seemed dedicated entirely to expressing sadness and hardship. According to every principle, such music should be avoided. Why would any species deliberately create art that made them feel bad? Listen to this, as said, playing a song by an artist named B.B. King. The guitar wailed and cried, the voice rough with pain. The lyrics spoke of heartbreak and loss and betrayal. Ara felt her emotional regulators fighting against the song. Her body wanted to activate comfort chemicals, to suppress the sad feelings the music was creating. But she forced herself to let the song wash over her naturally, the way a human would experience it. Something strange happened. The sadness in the song was real and deep, yes, but underneath it, woven through it, was something else, something that felt like triumph. No, not quite, more like strength, or maybe dignity. The human singing this song had suffered, but he was still here, still singing, transforming his pain into something beautiful. I don't understand, as said. This song makes me sad, but it also makes me feel good. How is that possible? Ra had been monitoring their brain chemistry. Look at your scans, she said. You're experiencing multiple emotions simultaneously. Sadness and admiration and respect and empathy all at once. In psychology, that's considered a malfunction. We're supposed to feel one clear emotion at a time. But humans don't work that way, Ara realized. They feel everything mixed together. They can be sad and happy at the same time. They can hurt and heal simultaneously. Their music reflects that complexity. She pulled up more blues songs, then jazz, then country music, another genre obsessed with heartache. Each one was different, but they all shared that same quality. They took pain and transformed it into art. They acknowledged suffering while refusing to be destroyed by it. This is what we've lost, El said. His aged voice carried a weight that made everyone stop and listen. We eliminated suffering 3,000 years ago. We engineered our biology to prevent pain. We built a society where no one had to hurt. We thought we'd achieved paradise. Haven't we? Ez asked. Have we? El played a human song called Hurt, originally by 9 Inch Nails but covered by Johnny Cash. The old human's voice cracked with age and regret, singing about pain and mistakes and the weight of a long life. It was devastating. It was also one of the most beautiful things Ara had ever heard. We don't hurt anymore, El continued. But we don't feel much of anything anymore either. We activate our happiness glands and we experience contentment, but it's hollow, it's empty, because we never earned it, we never fought for it. We never had to overcome anything to find it. That's absurd, Ra protested. Suffering serves no purpose. We elevated ourselves beyond it. Did we elevate ourselves, or did we just numb ourselves? The question hung in the air. Nobody answered. Ara spent the next week studying human musicians themselves. She watched videos of them performing, read their interviews, studied their biographies. What she found challenged everything she thought she knew about emotion and art. A woman named had created an entire album about a broken relationship. Millions of humans loved it specifically because it made them cry. They sought out music that would make them sad, then thanked the artist for it. Why? A man named had written songs about depression and alienation and pain. Those songs had helped countless humans feel less alone in their own suffering. Music that acknowledged pain had made people feel better, not worse. A group called the Beatles had written hundreds of songs, some happy, some sad, most somewhere in between. They'd lived short, chaotic lives by standards, barely 80 years for the longest lived among them. Yet they'd created more emotionally resonant music than the entire civilization had produced in 3. It's because they know they're going to die, Kay said suddenly. The team turned to look at him. The physicist had been quiet for days, running calculations and models. Humans live for maybe 90 years, he continued. We live for 600 on average, live for thousands of years. They are functionally immortal, but humans, they barely get started before they're gone. Every moment matters to them because they don't have many moments. When they're happy, they're intensely happy because they know it won't last. When they're sad, they pour everything into that sadness because they need to process it quickly or it'll eat up their short lives. They crystallize emotion into music because they feel everything so intensely, Ara breathed. It's not a technique they developed. It's an evolutionary necessity. They have to process enormous feelings in a short time, so they transform those feelings into art, and the art carries that intensity forward. She pulled up a song called Imagine by John. Simple piano, simple lyrics, singing about peace and hope and human unity. The man who wrote it was shot to death at 40 years old. He'd lived barely half a standard childhood, yet he'd created something that had touched billions of humans and was now affecting species across the galaxy. Listen to this and tell me we're more advanced than them, Ara said. We live 10 times longer. We can regulate our emotions perfectly. We've eliminated suffering, but we can't create anything like this. We can't feel deeply enough to crystallize emotion into pure form. We traded depth for length, intensity for stability. Is that a bad trade? Ra asked quietly. Nobody had an answer. The contamination started in the 4th month. That's what they called it, though the word felt wrong. Contamination implied something harmful, something unwanted. What was happening to them felt more like awakening. As was humming, he didn't realize he was doing it at first. A human melody he'd heard dozens of times in his research, something called Somewhere Over the Rainbow. Just humming while he worked, the way humans often did. When Ara pointed it out, he was, "I'm sorry, doctor, don't hum. It's considered primitive behavior, something children do before they learn proper emotional control." "Don't apologize," Ara said. "I've been doing it too." She had been. Little snatches of melody would bubble up in her mind and escape through her vocal membrane without her conscious choice. Here comes the sun mostly, but also What a Wonderful World and Lean on Me and a dozen others. Songs inserting themselves into her thoughts like pleasant invasions. Ra reported that her emotional regulators were malfunctioning. She'd wake up feeling something without having activated any glands. Usually it was leftover emotion from whatever human music she'd studied the night before. Sometimes it was her own feelings, spontaneous and uncontrolled. "I'm scared," she admitted. "I've never felt things without choosing to feel them. What if I can't control it anymore?" "Would that be so terrible?" Elle asked, "to feel naturally?" "Yes." Ra's skin flashed red, indicating distress. "Unregulated emotion leads to chaos. That's why we developed control in the first place. Our ancestors suffered terribly from unchecked feelings. Did they suffer or did they live? That's the same thing. Is it? Ara watched her team fracture along philosophical lines. Half of them saw human music as a dangerous addiction, something that undermined of careful evolution. The other half saw it as a revelation, evidence that their civilization had lost something precious in its pursuit of perfect emotional control. She found herself in the second camp, though she wouldn't admit it officially. The 6-month deadline was approaching. She would have to present her findings to the High Council soon. If she told them human music was dangerous, they would destroy every sample and forbid further contact with Earth. If she told them it was safe, they would. What? Allow it to spread. Watch their entire society slowly contaminate itself with uncontrolled emotion. On the 171st day, Ara made a decision. She sent a message to the High Council requesting a 2-month extension. She needed more time to understand what human music was doing to them and what it meant for civilization. The Council's response came quickly. Request: present your findings in 7 days or your research will be terminated and all samples destroyed. 7 days. 7 days to understand something that seemed to reach into the core of what it meant to be alive. Ara gathered her team and told them the news. They had 1 week to figure out what human music had taught them about emotion, consciousness, and the price of perfection. Then they would have to decide what to do about it. Part 3. The research station was silent as Ara prepared her final presentation. In 7 hours, she would face the High Council and deliver findings that would determine the future of human contact. Her team worked around her, compiling data, organizing arguments, trying to reduce 6 months of transformative research into something the Council might understand. Elle found her staring out at Earth, the blue planet rotating peacefully below. "They don't even know we're here," the old composer said. "Billions of humans down there, living and dying and feeling everything, creating this miraculous music. And they have no idea that it's changing civilizations light years away." "Should we tell them?" Ara asked. "If the Council rules in our favor, should we make contact?" "I don't know. What would we even say? Thank you for accidentally creating something we lost ago." Ara turned away from the viewport. "Elle, what are you going to tell the Council? You've been composing music for 5 centuries. Do you think human music is a threat?" The ancient musician was quiet for a long moment. Then he did something that shocked her. He laughed. Real laughter, spontaneous and uncontrolled, the kind Proper never allowed themselves. "A threat," he said. "Oh, absolutely. It's the greatest threat our civilization has ever faced. Because if truly understand what human music represents, everything will change. And change is the most threatening thing there is." 6 hours later, Ara stood before the High Council. 50 pairs of eyes watched her, some curious, most suspicious. Ara, the council chief, gestured for her to begin. "Honored Council," Ara started, "I present the findings of our 6-month study into human musical phenomena. We have analyzed over 1 million human songs spanning 5,000 years of their history. We have measured their effects on neurochemistry. We have interviewed our test subjects and documented the changes in their emotional responses. Our conclusion is complex and, I believe, important." She brought up a holographic display showing a human woman named Franklin singing Respect. The sound filled the chamber, rich and powerful and absolutely alive. Several council members shifted uncomfortably. Others leaned forward, intrigued. "Human music contains what we might call crystallized emotion," Ara continued. "But that's an inadequate description. It's not just emotion. It's authentic lived experience transformed into acoustic form. When a human creates music, they channel their genuine feelings into it. Joy, sorrow, love, rage, hope, despair, all of it flows into the song. And when other beings listen, they can feel those emotions as if experiencing them firsthand." "We already knew this," Ara interrupted. "You've had 6 months. What else have you learned?" Ara took a breath. We learned why humans can do this and we cannot. We learned what we sacrificed when we gained emotional control. And we learned that the question isn't whether human music is dangerous. The question is whether we want to keep living without it. Murmurs rippled through the council chamber. Ara raised a hand for silence. "Explain," she commanded. Ara played another song, this one a blues piece by James called "I'd Rather Go Blind." The human woman's voice was raw with pain, singing about lost love and unbearable heartache. "This song makes me sad," Ara said. "Genuinely, deeply sad in a way our emotional regulators would normally prevent, but it also makes me feel connected to the human who sang it. She lived over 100 years ago, died decades past, but through this song I can feel what she felt. I can share her pain, and somehow that sharing makes the pain beautiful instead of destructive." She switched to "What a Wonderful World" by Louis. "This song makes me happy, but not the empty contentment we get from activating our pleasure glands. This is a different kind of happiness. It's happiness that knows sadness exists. It's joy that acknowledges pain. The human who sang this lived through terrible times, through war and racism and personal struggle, yet he chose to sing about the beauty in the world. That choice, that defiance in the face of suffering, that's what's crystallized in this song." She played song after song, each one illustrating her point. "Hallelujah" by, showing how humans could find the sacred in the secular. "Lose Yourself" by, demonstrating determination and desperation mixed together. "Bridge Over Troubled Water" by, and pure compassion transformed into sound. "What we lost," Ara said finally, "is the ability to feel deeply enough to create things like this. We regulate our emotions, which means we moderate them. We can activate happiness but never ecstasy. We can induce sadness when appropriate but never grief. We've lived for 3,000 years in the comfortable middle range of emotion, never too high, never too low. We thought that was advancement, but humans show us it might be impoverishment." "You're suggesting we abandon emotional regulation?" Ara asked sharply. "Return to the chaos our ancestors suffered through?" "No," Ara said. "I'm suggesting we consider that there might be a middle way, that perhaps perfect control comes at too high a cost." Before Ara could respond, Old El stood. The council fell silent. A composer of his standing had earned the right to be heard. "I composed my first song 473 years ago," he said, his voice steady and clear. "It was mathematically perfect, emotionally appropriate, and completely empty. I've been composing empty songs ever since, perfect arrangements that communicate nothing real, and I accepted that because I thought it was the price of civilization." He played something from his portable console. To Ara's surprise, it wasn't a human song. It was something new, something she'd never heard. The melody was in structure but wild in execution. Perfect mathematical progressions suddenly broke into chaotic improvisations. Regulated harmonies gave way to raw emotional outbursts. It was like nothing their civilization had produced in. "I wrote this last night," El said. "After studying human music for 6 months, I finally remembered how to put real feeling into a song. It's not perfect. It breaks dozens of our compositional rules. But it's mine. It's real. It made me feel alive for the first time in centuries." "This is exactly what I feared," Ara said coldly. "Human music is a contagion. It's degrading our standards, corrupting our traditions, undermining the emotional stability we spent achieving." "Or maybe," suggested another council member, a young physicist named "it's showing us that our emotional stability is actually stagnation." The chamber erupted in arguments. Half the council demanded immediate suppression of all human musical samples. The other half insisted on further study. Ara stood in the center of the chaos, watching her civilization fracture over the simple question of whether feelings should be controlled or experienced. Ara finally restored order. "Dr. Ara, I ask you directly, is human music a threat to civilization? Yes or no?" Ara looked at the council chief. "Yes," she said. "It's a profound threat, Because if our people truly understand what human music represents, many will choose feeling over control. They'll want to experience emotions naturally instead of activating them on demand. Our society will change, maybe fall apart entirely. Then we'll destroy all samples and forbid. But, Ara interrupted, I also believe that refusing this knowledge is a greater threat, because it means accepting that our civilization is so fragile, so afraid of authentic emotion, that we have to hide from it. Is that the legacy we want? Are we so afraid of feeling that we'll deny ourselves the greatest artistic achievement in galactic history? The council chamber fell silent. I propose, Ara continued, that we make human music available to any who wishes to experience it. We establish centers where our people can listen safely, with emotional support available if they need it. We don't force anyone to engage with it, but we don't hide it either. We trust our people to make their own choices about whether they want to feel more deeply, even if it means less control. And if our society tears itself apart, Ara demanded. Then maybe it needed to, Elle said quietly. Maybe a society that can't survive authentic emotion isn't worth preserving. The vote was close. 26 in favor of suppression, 24 in favor of Ara's proposal. Ara, as council chief, would cast the deciding vote. She was quiet for a long time. Finally, she spoke. Play it again, she said to Ara. The first song, the one that started all this. Ara played Here Comes the Sun. Ara listened with her eyes closed. Ara watched the council chief's skin shift through colors that indicated internal struggle. The song washed over all of them, simple and pure, and filled with the quiet happiness of someone who'd known darkness and was celebrating the return of light. When it ended, Ara opened her eyes. They were wet, rarely cried. I vote in favor of access, she said hoarsely. May the collective forgive me, but I vote to let our people hear this. The decision made, Ara took one final step. Against protocol, without permission, she broadcast a message toward Earth on common radio frequencies. The message was simple. The first bars of Here Comes the Sun, played back on instruments, followed by 3 words in basic mathematical language that any civilization would understand. Thank you, more please. Humanity's response came 3 days later. A hastily assembled group of musicians, scientists, and diplomats broadcast back to the source of the strange signal. They had no idea who was out there or what the message meant, but they understood that someone had been listening to their music. And humans, being humans, responded the only way they knew how. They sent more songs, thousands of them, a musical greeting to whoever was listening, a package of pure crystallized human emotion launched into the stars. Ara listened to the new songs with her team gathered around her. Rock and roll, hip-hop, classical symphonies, folk ballads, electronic dance music, opera, jazz, metal, pop, country, reggae, everything humanity had created. What have we done? As whispered. Changed everything, Ara replied. For better or worse, we've changed everything. Word of the human music spread through galactic academic channels. Some civilizations immediately banned any contact with it. They declared it a cognitive hazard. The collective classified it as a dangerous weapon. But others were curious. Young members of dozens of species began secretly accessing human songs. Underground music-sharing networks appeared across the galaxy. Beings who had lived in emotional stability for their entire lives suddenly discovered what it meant to feel deeply, messily, authentically. A movement began, slow at first, then growing. Creatures from across the stars who had experienced human music and decided they wanted to feel more, even if it meant hurting more. They called themselves the Authentic, and their message spread like wildfire through civilizations that had forgotten how to burn. 6 months after her presentation, Ara received a message from Earth. Humanity had been contacted formally by a coalition of younger species who wanted to learn from them. Not their technology, which was primitive by galactic standards. not their science, which was centuries behind. Their emotional wisdom, their ability to feel everything and still create beauty from it. The humans were baffled but honored. They didn't think of themselves as emotionally wise. They were just trying to survive and make sense of their brief, intense lives through music. But to species who had optimized away suffering and found themselves empty, humanity's chaotic authenticity was precious beyond measure. Their music was a reminder that a life without pain might be a life without meaning, and that the capacity to feel deeply, even when it hurt, was not a flaw to be fixed but a gift to be treasured. Ara stood on the observation deck of the research station, looking down at Earth. Somewhere down there, a human was writing a new song. They didn't know that beings light years away would someday listen to it and feel what they felt. They were just trying to express something true, to transform their lived experience into sound, to crystallize their happiness and sadness and everything in between into 3 minutes of pure emotion. And somehow, impossibly, that was enough to change the galaxy. Ara pressed the gland behind her ear, activating what should have been contentment. But she felt something else instead, something that came not from her biochemistry but from deep within her consciousness. Something human music had awakened. She felt hope, real, authentic, uncontrolled hope. And for the first time in her 300-year life, that felt exactly right.